In today's video, we're going to try putting a bunch of strange items into our abrasive tumbler to see what happens. Yes!
You bought a witch's cauldron.
I certainly did. This particular witch's cauldron has a motor on it.
It's a very jiggly one.
Here's the basic idea. We've got a 5-pound abrasive tumbler and we have several different things that we want to see tumbled. So we're gonna throw them all in there, turn it on for a full week and see what happens to them. This is our vibratory tumbler polishing tool. We have a hardened plastic bowl on a motor with springs and it just, basically this thing just shakes.
Now, I've used tumblers in the past. I've never used a professional grade one before. I thought this was full of sand.
So rock tumblers usually work different from this stuff. A rock tumbler, which a lot of people had as a kid, you take the rocks, you put it in, and you add like a paste polish, and then it just rolls. And it rolls for usually like a month and a half or something. And just over time, it wears down the rocks and they get very, very shiny. This works a little bit different.
Are these plastic?
They are resin with an abrasive agent embedded in them. So
it's what's coming off on our hands too. You can actually see that. Yeah,
that and little bits of plastic from the side and a test piece of metal that I had to make sure the machine was working. And so yeah, what happens is all of these little pieces are in here and you turn the machine on and it shakes and it just beats them. These little pyramids just get shaken around and they scratch things up in a very, very tiny way. But over time, those tiny, tiny, tiny scratches build up and they can do cool things. So we want to see the result. This is made for cleaning and polishing pieces of metal. You can use it to clean rust off of stuff, or if you cut out a piece of metal and you want to take off all of the rough edges, the burrs, the metal scaling on it, stuff like that, you can just put that in and it'll just smooth and just remove the very outside of it along with polishing it down.
Nice.
And the longer you leave it in, of course, the more the effect is noticeable.
Cool. So on my end, he was telling me about this and we were talking about coins and other things like that we could put in. So I brought a couple pieces of jewelry. So this is actually a sterling silver ring that I have. This ring I've left out just on my dresser for about a year and you can see how it is badly tarnished. So I want to see if that'll become a nice shine. On the opposite side, I have this basically costume jewelry ring. You can see that the plating, this either nickel or silver plating, has almost entirely faded away where it would rest against my hand. You can see the copper coming through. But I'm wondering after a week if we're gonna lose all of this silver nickel plate that's still on there.
I wonder if because copper is fairly soft, I wonder if we're actually going to lose some of the detail, like beading. It's not beads, but little tiny points of metal. I'm curious if those will all still be attached or not.
You brought some other normal things, some coins.
Yeah, I've got a key, and this is like a fairly new key. I don't know that it's ever actually been used in a lock. It was cut and then given to me, and I don't think it's been used in a lock. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw this in as well, and I'm curious what these teeth look like, along with the whole rest of the key, like what's gonna happen to it after it's in there. I've got some coins, quarters, nickels, dimes. I have some weirdly discolored dimes, and I'm curious to see if those will come back to normal coloring.
I'm very excited about this one though, the glass.
So this is just a couple pieces of a jar. It's regular glass. It's fairly sharp right now because I broke this jar 15 minutes ago. And I don't actually know if what we have in the tumbler right now is hard enough to do anything to the glass or not. So it's kind of gonna be an experiment. It would be neat if this turns into something that looks like sea glass. Yeah. Sort of opaque and rough on the outside, but it might be too hard. Then I've also got a pair of sunglasses and they got a little bit ruined. So I'm just gonna take a lens out. And then a couple other things you wanted to do. This is a
fun dip.
Fun dip. From when we did our fun dip experiments, we have a lot of 6 left over.
Not that many anymore.
We're gonna see how well that survives in here. Also, we have a soda can. It's empty and been washed out. We're just gonna see if we can set that in there and see what it does. I'm hoping it just takes off all of the paint on the outside. I'm also curious to see if some end up on the inside of this. I don't know what it's gonna do, but we're just gonna take a picture of everything so we know what to look for. Throw it all in, let it run for a week, and then we're gonna pour everything out and see what we can find. Like, I think that these are just gonna be gone. I think they will have turned to powder at the bottom.
I'm hoping that this will have holes in it at the
very least. That would be really cool.
Yep.
It wears holes right through the side. It's pretty thin. Let's take a look at what this looks like before we throw everything in, the shaking of it. It's fairly loud.
So loud.
Especially when you don't have this on. Yeah, I'm about to turn it on, and so you can see a lot of this and we'll get some good shots of it.
I want to put my hand in it so bad. You shouldn't, you shouldn't, but I want to. Actually, you know what it does? So when you just put your hand in here when that's not on, you can't get your hand all the way to the bottom like you can.
Oh, but it turns it more fluid.
Yeah, it's like your fluid sand with air.
Very cool. Then of course there's a lid that goes on it, wing nut screws down, holds everything in place. So yeah, we're now going to throw all of these things in and see which ones survive and what happens to them after quite a while in here.
Costume ring, real ring.
Soda can, which I don't know if this is actually gonna sink.
Divot. There we go. Okay. And now we leave the studio for a week.
So just so you can hear the difference of when it is, when it has the lid on. It's still fairly loud, but less. We're gonna go put this in a closet where we can't hear it so much. Then in a week, we'll see what it's like.
Nice.
Guys, it's been about a week.
Like a week and a half.
When did we do? Was it Wednesday or Thursday last week?
Like Tuesday.
It's been at least a week, and we're really good at keeping track of time, clearly. But we have had the metal polisher running non-stop, except for a few times where we had to tinker with it. We'll explain about those, but let's go see how it's doing right now. It's actually moved several times over the course of this experiment because of sound. But
the shed wasn't quite enough, the garage wasn't quite enough. Guys, it's in the playhouse.
The playhouse on the other side of the yard with like a foam covering on top of it, so it's a very loud thing. Let's go check it out. I hear it.
I do too.
It doesn't sound great.
Oh boy.
Okay.
What? Why is it spinning?
Well, that was definitely not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to detach.
Where's the rod that was running through it?
All right, guys, so here's kind of the breakdown of the things that happened. First, we put this in our side shed. And after it had been running in there for about an hour, I went in to check on it, and the hardware on top of it was very, very hot. And I thought, that's probably not a problem, but just in case, I took it out of there because that side shed also has some things like some cans of gasoline. And just in case there was something that was too hot, I didn't want it to be in there in case there was any kind of fire. So I took it out of there and I put it in the middle of the garage floor with like 8 to 10 feet from anything else. And it was just a concrete slab. I figured if anything does start burning, there's not much it can catch on fire. And so we left it there for a couple days. But because it had started getting hot, I had thrown a couple of pieces of tape over it. I was just like, at the time it was just a couple.
I saw it. It was taped to the floor. It's pretty great. Was that the one that you had taped to the floor?
No, there were bricks on it.
Okay.
To keep it from just like moving. But the tape was just around the bowl. Just a couple of pieces holding the lid on. And that turned out to be a good thing because when I came back the next day, the wing nut that was holding it on had shaken itself off and was just on the floor next to it. And the tape was holding it on, so I stopped it. I put the wing nut back on, added a little bit more tape, including one like over the rod to hold the wing nut on so it couldn't go anywhere. I think I left it for another day at that point. Came back, it had like worn through the tape and the wing nut had come off again, I think. Throughout all of this, I have not looked inside to see what's happened. So I know there's been a lot of destruction.
This isn't dust from where we had it kept. This is from the machine itself.
I think so, but also
Nothing
maybe
else
some
in
of it
any
has
of our-
like escaped out.
Well, that works.
Oh, something that we put in there turned black, or some things. Okay, well, here's a coin. That actually has much less wear on it than I would have guessed. It's got a very intense, like satin texture. Did it do anything to the glass?
Same thing, just kind of soft.
We're gonna
wash
wash
all this off.
We did manage to vibrate a lot into our can, but I would have thought this would have been completely stripped of paint. Must just be the angle that it was at.
My ring, one of my rings. This is the actual sterling silver ring. And it's shiny.
Sunglasses lens.
Instead of being polished though, it just looks more beaten up.
You can see the thread rod as it came and the thread rod as it was worn down by the hardware as this thing shook and spun.
So remember how we were looking at the glass a second ago and we're like, oh yeah, it looks like it has a kind of a cool satin finish?
Nope.
I just rinsed it off. It's just glass.
So glass is just too hard.
Yeah, the edges, like I said, are chip smooth. So like I have no fear running my finger across this. I'm not gonna get sliced or anything. But it's otherwise undamaged. So we just pulled out our digital microscope because we wanted to see what some of this stuff looked like up close, and already I'm so sad. So this is what the edge of my ring looks like, and as you can see, it's absolutely just eaten that to pieces.
Co-op.
I actually haven't washed off my other costume jewelry piece because I wanted to see if we could get a close-up of this dust that's just sort of gotten caught in it. Yes, there we go. This is just on the very edge of it. This is what happens. This fine particulate is just getting trapped in all those little grooves and just wearing away the color.
And I'm pretty sure that this dust is a combination of worn down aluminum and paint from our soda can, along with sugar from our candy sticks. Okay, I put in a sunglasses lens and I thought this was gonna get way more destroyed. It actually looks just very slightly scratched up. There you go, you can see it is scratched. It's definitely a scratched up lens. But honestly, I can still see through this lens fairly well.
You know, it's not cutting down my visibility much.
Take a look at this, this coated ring. Yes, some of the coating has been worn off, but there's a lot more silver still left than I would have thought.
Here it is, Callie's now cleaned this off, and you can see all of that silver plating down in the little grooves and crevices that were, until very recently, covered in a black dust. That's still got the silver coating on. It's exposed all of the copper bumps that look like little fancy beads, but it looks like the plating is still there down below. Look at that.
And that black is hard to get out. There's definitely still some in there.
Oh yes. So normally this is the edge of a penny, and there's this lip on it, around the whole outside. You know, that's how American coins are. It's got this lip. But as we travel around, gone. This is a 2018. This is not an old coin that's been tossed around in vending machines and in pockets for decades. This is just, there used to be a lip. Over on this part, it's worn off, and I think you can even see a little bit of the zinc showing through. This is a house key that very much does look like it's been in use and in people's pockets for a decade at this point.
You know, at this point I would have liked to say, guys, what else would you like to see in our Tumbler?
Guys, what would you like to see if we get a new Tumbler?
There you go.
I think this is too big, and I also wonder if this could have been part of the problem, because as this filled with abrasive, I think it became just sort of a weight on one side.
Could have been doing it, could have knocked it off balance.
Yeah, this is still full. They managed to get in, but they're very slow to shake back out. So if there's anything you want to see what happens if it gets worn for a long time that is not the size of a soda can, more the coin and key size thing.
Smaller, lighter weight, metal, glass, stone,
and
anything like
there
that.
There are other types of abrasive. We could look into getting some of those and see if those do anything different. Some of them might cut more aggressively or polish better. So it's worth looking into.
Yeah, let us know.
Guys, that's it for today, but you know, we've always got more for you to see. Hit that box up at the top to check out our most recent video, and we will see you in the next one. Talk to you then.